Yeah,
You're
unfortunately,
watching the
SMJ not
Eternal
able to
Tournament
cast
Series.
Carnosaur there, but at the same time, that's
Welcome back to Eternal Tournament Series Season 5, Week 6, Round 2 of the Swiss. We've got another exciting matchup here for you. We've got ExKirby versus Alphil, and I'm joined by my co-caster, LocoPojo. And
Hey everyone, got a good game lined up for you today. ExKirby is playing on a really interesting bad news deck using Westwind Heralds and Calderan Channelers with that standard mirror image Cabal Spymaster infinite combo where you mirror image the Westwind Heralds or you mirror image the Calderan Channelers, and then that creates copies over and over again until you deal enough damage to just completely wipe out your opponent. There's also a cool combo here where you can bad news over and over and over again with Westwind Herald and Cabal Spymaster and get another infinite combo there. So lots of fun combos going on Kirby's side. On the other side, we have a more straightforward Recano Armory list, which is just direct red and green, Reforge and Rise to the Challenge, picking up Ikaria and Starsteel Daisho. This deck's proven pretty solid on the ladder, I believe, and we've seen some really cool just good damage out of it. So it should be very straightforward and hopefully good enough to stop the combo before it even starts.
yeah, an interesting take on Armory here. It doesn't have Stash or Quarry for value. Instead, it's just going for Reforge and the consistency of just being Fire and Justice to sort of push past that. Having double Daisho and double Ikaria is like pretty good top end, but it's just about the same as traditional Armory, so they're not going like heavier on top end to make up for the loss of Stash. It's just focusing on Reforge and just having a better mid-range curve. So I think that's pretty neat.
Yeah, I think overall this deck should have a very good chance against ExKirby's combo deck, especially since a lot of the strength of the deck relies on the somewhat difficult to kill nature of the Westwind Herald. When you're running a bunch of relic weapons, Westwind Herald's not that difficult to kill at all, so it tends to be a bit of a problem for decks like ExKirby, where he is trying to play that unit down and keep it alive for at least one turn so that he can combo off with it. So as long as Alphil can have the right weapon for the Westwind Herald when it comes out, that should be really, really good for him.
Yeah, I don't know that Spymaster combo has any good matchups, but I wouldn't say that this is the best matchup for it, just because Armory is a particularly proactive deck, and it just gets a lot of value out of removing units, and Kirby's deck really needs to stick a few key units that are particularly weak to weapons, just because they're more about dodging one-for-one removal or targeted removal rather than weapons. So this could be rough. But Scouting Party here, very good for Kirby.
Yeah. There are some potential strengths for Kirby. If he can get the Scouting Party out, that's definitely the good way to sort of widen around the board and get to the point where he can actually start dealing a bunch of damage with Caldera and Channeler. This deck has other ways to win than just the infinite combo, and cards like Black Sky Harbinger, Scouting Party, and Channeler, of course, all the ones that push damage can be pretty effective, especially since they're a little bit harder to kill for the standard Armory deck. In the sideboard, he's got 4 Scrap Tanks lurking, along with an Azindil's Gift or 2, and those are very good against the Armory setup if he can get them down.
If he brings in the Scrap Tanks, ExKirby's calling card. But we should be getting into the game here. Kirby's just gone for a redraw, and this hand looks pretty good as far as influence.
Yeah, he's got the 3 colors that he wants. He's got double blue. He doesn't have double shadow yet for the Steward of the Past, so he doesn't really have a play in this hand. But as long as he draws a shadow, he should be fine. And if he draws anything else, he's pretty likely to be able to play it.
Yeah, absolutely. Wisdom of the Elders is, I think, what he wants to look for. Getting the double shadow first draw is pretty good here, and playing the depleted power on turn 1 is totally okay by ExKirby.
Yep, Alphil playing an Inspire gets a decent amount of value out of that, of course. He does not have a 2-drop, which means that he's pretty likely to be playing a Sword of Ikaria on turn 3. Although it's possible that he's holding on to Valkyrie Enforcers and Auric Runehammers, both of which are pretty good cards against ExKirby's deck. The Stewards of the Past are really good cards for Kirby here. They tend to stay just above Auric Runehammer, which makes them really good to play down on curve against the Armory deck. Finding the right unit to play on curve against an Armory deck is a tricky situation, and it's always a little bit hard to do. So if you can get it down, then that's definitely what you want to go for.
Yeah, absolutely. And also something I've just thought of, Alphil's deck gets to run 4 Valkyrie Enforcers, which typically Armory doesn't get to do just because they have so many cards they have to fit in when they're 3 faction. And Valkyrie Enforcer improves like Dawnwalker matchups quite a bit. Not that that's happening in this matchup, but I just thought it was interesting for this Armory deck. It probably will help him if he moves on from this round.
Yeah, it'll be nice, especially for silencing the Cabal Spymaster, a card that you traditionally might not want to kill as much in terms of the rest of the deck. Like, the Westwind Heralds are the most important cards to save weapons for, so if you can leave the Spymaster alive but just sort of disable it, that can really help for a while. It sort of depends on how many weapons you have available, but Caldera and Gunsmith coming down and popping the Sword of Icaria means that ExKirby's getting a little bit of damage in.
Yes, this is a bit what we were talking about, how ExKirby's got all these sort of weak units that are more, you need to have value by being on the board, and Alphil's deck is all about keeping units off the board, so it's going to be really tough for Kirby outside of Scouting Party, like we said.
Yeah, he's got the Steward of the Past playing, and of course that card is really, really solid against this matchup. If Alphil finds a Reforge, then he'll be able to figure out some ways around it, but it's pretty hard to get rid of it. The best answer for him is Starsteel Daisho, and that still has to attack into it twice.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, now that he's got a Recano Artisan down, he's got a couple more options and a couple Warcries on, or a Warcry on the top of the deck. But yeah, Steward of the Past is also the next best card outside of Scouting Party and maybe Black Sky Harbingers, because its stat line lines up very well with most weapons before Recano Artisan, but we'll see.
Yeah, Kirby has to strongly consider using the mirror image here, and he does, to double up on the stewards and create a situation where Alphil's deck is not quite as on top of things. He doesn't attack here, which means that he's going to just annihilate the Valkyrie Enforcer and try and hold the board for a while. If Alphil has a harsh rule, he can even things out again, although he will lose the ability to recur the Recano Artisan, which he didn't have anyways.
Yeah. Throne Warden coming down just sort of, I don't know, makes Kirby less inclined to attack, perhaps, just because potentially Alphil could attack him with a Throne Warden. Kirby maybe blocks even, and cleans up a Steward with a weapon, or just takes too much damage on the return. But Black Sky Harbinger will stuff that for the most part. Now both players just kind of staring at each other, hoping to draw out of this situation. I think Alphil's giving a hard tell on a harsh rule here, though.
Yeah, Kirby does not have a lot of good options. He wants the game to go long if he can make it go long. So he's going to double block here just in case the Throne Warden has some sort of cool trick, which we know that it doesn't. And getting the extra health here means that he's in pretty good shape after the harsh rule. So he's just going to lose a couple of things on board, but he will still have the Spymaster in hand, still potentially be able to play something else. And it's possible Alphil was bluffing on that harsh rule. Instead, he actually gets a piece of the Black Sky Harbinger, and Kirby's now ahead on board.
Yeah, this is a really awkward situation. I don't know what Alphil's hand is. I was thinking Alphil doesn't mind trading away all his units just because he's super ahead in card advantage, so harsh rule would have been fine there. But I was wondering why he attacked, because attacking, if he had harsh rule, just gained ExKirby 3 health for free. But I guess he just didn't have harsh rule. It doesn't seem to have any play if he just passed his turn like that. This is really interesting.
On Starsteel Daishos, which are not a good card against Steward. ExKirby playing as though the harsh rule isn't going to get drawn, which is, I think, the correct option here. He wants to kill Alphil before Alphil gets to 7 or 6, because the only answers for Alphil right now are basically big weapons, and he's guaranteed to draw those at some point. Kirby just trying to finish him off as fast as possible. If he can actually win this next round, like if there isn't a harsh rule or another weapon, then this will be game.
I think that Scouting Party is maybe a little over ambitious. I probably would have played the Spymaster, just because if Alphil had just top decked harsh rule, then you play the Scouting Party at the end. But it didn't matter. Alphil didn't draw the harsh rule, and he stuck on 5. Probably has a handful of Icarias and Starsteel Daishos, so he concedes.
Yep, that's a real rough situation for Alphil. I feel like he, that early attack there for the sort of Icaria value left him in a bit of a vulnerable position. I'm not sure if that was the best attack possible, but it's possible that it was the only option that he had. He certainly couldn't deal with the 3/5 units, and with all of the 3/5 units, it was just a little bit difficult for the Armory deck to get through. He really needs to pick up on the big 6 drops and 7 drops or get that Rakano Artisan out early so that he can get the Auric Runehammers down and do a little bit of damage that way. But couldn't deal with it, didn't find the harsh rule. Just a little bit of bad luck, and also like ExKirby played that very well. Like pushed the aggression when he needed to, played the right units down so that the right stuff got removed and the right stuff got left on board. I think that was a really cool game, and we're going to be seeing him go into game 2 shortly.
Yeah, ExKirby definitely pushed the clock as fast as he could. He wanted to give Alphil the least chances he could to draw out of that. Armory being an interesting kind of control deck where it doesn't have any real card draw. It doesn't have something like Wisdom of the Elders or Staff of Stories or Feln Bloodcaster or a lot of things that other control decks have, like Mystic Ascendant. It relies on its cards being worth more than one card. So when you're playing a bunch of units, if you're able to get out multiple units and that need that they have like 5 health, Armory is put into this weird situation where they can't kill a unit with a weapon and then have the weapon stick around, and they're just trading 1 for 1, and then they run out of cards. I mean, that game didn't play out like that because Alphil just had a ton of cards stuck in hand, but had he been playing stuff out, it might have turned out that way, and he just would have run out of gas against all of the Stewards of the past.
Yeah, there's no help in Alphil's sideboard for this particular matchup. He has Ruins and Protects. The Protects can be used to pop Aegises, but aren't particularly helpful against the overall like sort of unit-focused strategy that he was seeing. Against Steward of the Past, he just doesn't have a lot that's going on. Groundbreaker pushes a little bit of damage if he wants to run that, and Reforge is a very good card for getting over those Steward of the Pasts and actually getting the damage that you need out of that. So if he adds the 1 Reforge, you'll have a slightly better card. Rise to the Challenge also picks up a card that tends to have 5 power or more and is capable of killing Stewards. And if you can just kill enough of the Stewards, then you should be clear to get rid of the rest of the board without any major issues.
Yeah, I kind of like the extra Rise to the Challenge. Also, I'm noticing that he's got 3 Emerald Monuments, which I think is really interesting. Interesting is the word I'm going to use here. I'm not sure what he wants to equip them to. I don't, because the deck is really focused on, I mean, Throne Warden obviously and Ikaria are great targets because they have the Aegis. But I feel like his units are more serving a defensive purpose outside of Ikaria, which just has the War Cries. So I'm just wondering if that just makes his mana worse. I'm not sure.
Yeah, it's hard to say. Kirby's sideboard, in the meantime, has 4 Plagues, which is not a great card for this situation. Death Strike is okay against some of the units, but tends to be pretty inefficient against Throne Wardens, and most of the other stuff has Aegises as well, or is just too small to really care about killing with Death Strike. The Scrap Tanks seem extremely valuable, and he does have 4 of those to bring in if he wants them to go wide against the board and make the Armory deck struggle a little bit, as well as, of course, the 2 Azindil's Gifts, 1 or 2 of which could come in here to shut down Armory's sort of card value and get them into a more reactionary situation, or at least make that situation more difficult. Kirby also has 3 Fallen Oni, which
I know you love. Players are now in the game.
Certainly experimented with them, but yeah, they're an interesting card here. They can potentially discard the Ikarias and the Rakano Artisans and make it a little harder to draw those cards. But I'm not sure if they're particularly good against this matchup.
But yeah, we players are in the game. Let's take a look at opening hands. Kirby has 1 power and 2 seek powers, so this could be interesting. But we'll find out if he keeps shortly.
Yeah, this hand looks pretty okay. He's got 3 power available. He'll be able to Wisdom of the Elders for the 4th power, which is kind of what you want. And he's got at least Cobalt Ring. If he just doesn't pick up that power, he can continue to dig and hopefully find what he's looking for. He chooses to throw it back, though. It's just not quite reliable enough. And he does find another Steward of the Past on 4, which is definitely a card he's looking for.
Yeah, this hand, I'm slightly worried about Alphil just getting a more aggressive start out, getting in some War Cries and having a 5 attack weapon, or just a weapon on 3, and Kirby just being a little bit too far behind. Like, here's the Artisan, so that's definitely very real possibility. But he does have Wisdom, which is a very good turn 3 play, and Steward, which will gain back a lot of ground on turn 4.
Yep, yeah, the Artisan early is definitely much worse news for ExKirby, since it means that Alphil will be drawing cards like 5 power Sword of Ikarias and just a little bit better weapons in general. Admittedly, 5 power Auric Runehammers, not 5 power Sword of Ikarias. Since there's only 3 Auric Runehammers in the deck, Rakano Artisan's a little bit less dangerous than it normally is, but it's still kind of an issue, and Kirby does not have a great answer to this whole setup. If he plays Steward of the Past, he can only block the Sword of Ikaria. He can't block both without losing the Steward.
Yeah, he'll have to let the Artisan attack through.
Which is no guarantee that it's actually going to stop him from killing the Steward, but could potentially get him a lot of value.
Yeah, so let's see what he gets off this Wisdom here. He still needs to find the Fire Influence. Doesn't have it yet, but he's not in a big rush. Getting another Wisdom is great and all, but does he have the time to play it? That's the question.
Yeah, I think he's in decent shape here for the next couple of turns. He gets to play a 4-drop. His turn 5 doesn't influence the board very much, but his turn 6 is either Black Sky Harbinger or Scouting Party, and both of those are pretty solid cards against Alphil's strategy. If Black Sky Harbinger can recover enough damage, that's really important, so it will help him out in that respect.
Yeah, absolutely. If Alphil is playing stuff like Throne Wardens and more Artisans, Black Sky Harbinger is going to gain a lot of ground, popping Aegis and stuff. But Torch comes out from Alphil, and that the Steward is gone. The way is clear for weapons to be coming down.
Yep, ExKirby has a tough decision here. He can either play his Scrap Tank or his Death Strike and try to influence the board a little more, or he can go for the Island's Favor and try to get to that Black Sky Harbinger to influence the board a little bit later. Taking 5 damage is not a pleasant prospect here, especially since he could potentially take 5 more off of an Auric Runehammer or something along those lines. But it looks like he is going to hold for the Death Strike and just Death Strike the Valkyrie Enforcer to take as little damage as possible.
So he doesn't have Fire Influence still, so he can't play the Scrap Tank. So he's just holding power up to either Wisdom or Death Strike, and he elects, I think, to Wisdom here. Alphil is still stuck on 4 power, so I think ExKirby's kind of banking on that, saying, all right, I'm going to take this damage here. I'm going to keep drawing power, and he put in the Fallen Onis too.
Yep.
Just to try and get this Harbinger down next turn guaranteed. I think he probably should have played the Islands if he was going for that, but I think he was concerned maybe some powerful threat coming down that he might want to Death Strike.
He's an interesting math card in this situation. It certainly can get rid of the Ikarias. There's a high percentage of actual units in Alphil's deck. Like, we see Valkyrie Enforcers, we see Rakano Artisans. So there's some potential that he's not going to get what he wants here. I feel like Kirby made an error here in not using the Island's Favor earlier if he was planning to cast Wisdom of the Elders, because now he can't play Black Sky Harbinger, and he doesn't have a great play for this turn beyond a Fallen Oni into a mirror.
Oh, and he hits the Warcry to Ikaria. Wow, I mean, not that I love this card or anything. I'm still not high on this card, but that was a pretty good hit.
Yeah, there's Ikaria left in Alphil's deck, and it probably doesn't have 3 Warcries on it, so that's a pretty rough deal.
And now there's 0-2s because Alphil obviously brought in the Copper Hall Bailiffs. So just some interesting sideboard choices all around here.
Yeah, ExKirby making no blocks here. He has the Death Strike, so if he holds still for a turn, he can double block and Death Strike.
I mean, he can just play Harbinger.
Yeah, that's a little bit better. It actually clears out the board, gets him a little bit of health back, hopefully stabilizes him against the board to come. So at this point, Alphil has pretty low chances of drawing additional units. It's possible he has the other Ikaria in hand already, but it's pretty unlikely that he's going to draw another unit for the next 3 to 4 turns, I think.
He has Rise to the Challenge in his deck, though, right? So
yeah,
there's always a chance that he just draws Rise to the Challenge and gets whatever he wants.
Yeah, and Fallen Oni has a lot of risks attached to it. Not only the fact that, like, it while it does decrease the chance that your opponent is going to draw a unit, it also increases the chance they're going to draw a weapon or a power, both of which are things that Alphil desperately needs.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, point, Kirby can play Scouting Party and really start to blow up the board, or he can play this Westwind Herald and hope that there's no weapon to stop him. With a Calderan Gunsmith, he actually gets to do the full combo, but Alphil has the die show, and it's going to be clearing the board out completely.
Yeah, I don't think ExKirby comes back from this. The 6-4 die show still in play, and ExKirby goes to 2.
Yeah, with a Scouting Party, he holds the board, but he doesn't win, so that's going to be too much of an issue. Starsteel Dice Show kills the Black Sky Harbinger. Black Sky Harbinger has already gained him 3 at that point, and at that point, he is going to live for 1 more turn, which might actually be his goal.
Wait. Oh yeah, you're correct. Yeah, he lives just barely.
Yeah,
He'll be
with
at
3
3,
health
right?
left and a scouting party coming down, he needs to death strike the Valkyrie Enforcer and still have an answer for the other unit, which it turns out he's got another Fallen Oni.
The
That
perfect
should.
draw.
So it stalls the 2/3, and then he has death
And
strike
he
for
hits
the
another Warcry
Valkyrie
unit.
Enforcer. Yeah, I mean, you're definitely going to hit a Warcry unit if you're going to hit anything. But 4
Jeez.
Warcries on a Throne Warden, that is a pretty rough deal.
This is particularly interesting because if Alphil was playing a traditional armory deck, he'd be just like, all right, that's fine. I'll just stash those back later. But no, he's playing Reforge, so those are never coming back.
Yep, yeah, it's definitely not a great situation for him. He gets to death strike the Valkyrie Enforcer, finally killing that, and taking out the Copperhall Bailiff. Still puts him in stall mode, but he hasn't lost the game yet.
Oh, are you sure about that?
Yeah, well, there it goes.
Yeah, but
10
ExKirby
damage,
never
Charge
drawing
Chain Flail.
fire influence there. Although I don't know that it really mattered because at any point that he could have played Scrap Tank, he could have played Scouting Party, and they would have been about the same.
It's a rough sell. I'm not sure the Fallen Onis helped him as much as it seemed like they helped him, but certainly getting rid of that Ikaria did save him for the later turns. So we will see if he's going to keep those in and how much value they're going to add to his deck overall.
Yeah, it was interesting to see how that played out. Oh man, he did. It looked cool, right? Throwing all those Warcries into the just straight into the trash can looked cool, but when they all got turned into O2s and weren't actual cards on the board, they felt pretty bad.
Yeah, Fallen Oni is a hard card to evaluate because while it often does things that seem super awesome, there's no actual way to determine if it had any impact on the game itself. And indeed, the fact that he was drawing weapons or power might have been a little bit better for him there, because he did eventually get to that Charge Chain Flail a little bit faster than he might have. Yeah, it was a rough round, but overall, Kirby had to deal with a pretty early curve from Alphil. Getting that Recano Artisan down early is the thing that Alphil really wants to do every game, and if he can do that, he's got a much better chance against Kirby's deck in general. So we're going to see some sideboarding, I'm sure, or like maybe a little bit more play, and then we'll be getting back into round 3.
Yeah, I think they just got into the game, so I'm going to take a look at the opening hands now.
Yeah, so Kirby's opener has 4 power in it. It's got the Westwind Herald. He's going to keep that. Really, those 2 of the past are helping him out a ton against this type of deck. Like, it's just a hard card to deal with. The Recano Armory cannot run Slay, which is typically the card that you're using to clear Stewards of the Past in this deck. And while it has harsh rules, they're not particularly amazing, and Alpha might even have taken them out against such a low unit count on ExKirby's side. Like, you don't really run the harsh rules against Westwind Herald. They're okay against Harbinger and Steward, but most of the time you're going to have units developed on board, so you might want to just push more weapons. So if he can just play down the Stewards, that is sort of his path to victory. It's not an efficient path by any means, but it slows the game down enough that he has a chance of playing his other cards.
Yeah, I don't hate harsh rule from Alphil's side, but I definitely see taking it out as being pretty good, especially if you're bringing in cards like Copperhall Bailiff, because the biggest thing is Westwind Herald, and that goes. It lines up very well against harsh rule, so I could see why Alpha wouldn't want that. I'm just going to let the players know they're ready to start.
Yeah, hopefully they'll be getting their game quickly here. I'm not sure if ExKirby's even going to keep this hand, but it seems pretty likely, seeing as it's got the Westwind Herald and the Steward.
Yeah,
There's
I
a
quite
lot
like
to
it.
love about it.
I quite like it because he's already got double Shadow. He can get a Seek for the second Primal, and then the other Seek will get the Fire Influence.
Yep. Alphil playing out Justice to start off the game. Kirby drawing into the Scrap Tank, which is a solid 5-drop. And yeah, decent start for him. The Recano banner, meaning that Alphil does not have a turn to play. He probably drew that Recano banner and doesn't have the Artisan here. So ExKirby going to get a couple of turns to set up and probably will be able to play Steward without having incurred any significant board loss.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, there's the Artisan. What do we know? But,
All right.
But yeah, ExKirby's got all his influence, and drawing into the seed is nice just to fill out his curve, be able to play things on time. So he's going to probably curve into Steward and then maybe Scrap Tank. Maybe he's going to value holding onto the Herald until weapons have been used up a little bit.
Yeah, we see Steward of the Past is looking pretty okay here, and ooh, that Sword of Ikaria is a 4/3, but that's still not good enough to actually deal with the Steward, so it's not too big a deal there. As long as he plays down the Steward, he should be fine.
Yeah, the worry isn't so much this Sword of Ikaria, it's the next one, because sure, this one can get blocked, but Kirby's now taken 6 damage, and there is +1 from Rakano Artisan on the whole deck, and then an extra Warcry on top. So Alphil's drawing super live here.
Yep, it's a rough sell. Alphil can throw torches. He can use Valkyrie Enforcer to silence the Steward, which doesn't actually do anything, but at least gets him a 3/3 in the air. And that 3/3 in the air has proven to be sort of the deciding factor in these games as far as things go in terms of damage. So Kirby has the ability to play Black Sky Harbinger on 6, so he might want to eye Lins here, but he can also play Scrap Tank and attack in and see if he can get like a bigger Scrap Tank as a result.
Yeah, potentially. There's a couple things to talk about with silencing the Steward of the Past, like just potentially, it doesn't kill Turn Warden now, or now Alphil can double block it. But I don't think he wants to do that anymore. Now this premium Scrap Tank is on the board. And oh man, there is the Copper Hall Bailiff perfectly predicting the Scrap Tank include.
Yeah, it's not actually all that good in this situation, just because like what he really needs to do is kill the Scrap Tank. But
Yeah.
not having the 1/1s to attack in with does hurt a little bit here. Black Sky Harbinger is a great play for him at this point. He can also play Withering Witch to sort of even up the board and get it ready for the Black Sky Harbinger, which, considering how badly he needs to clear this board, might work out for him very well.
Yeah, I mean, Alphil's just stuck on 3, right? That's the story of this game, is that Kirby is curving out, and Alphil is just desperately trying. He's just getting in for 3 with his Valkyrie Enforcer, just hoping he gets there. Because his deck, the stuff that he's going to be doing when he draws more power is more powerful than what Kirby's going to be doing, but he's just so far behind.
Yeah, at this point, Kirby could be playing down Westwind Herald and trying to set up a some sort of combo, but he doesn't have anything in his current hand that combos out. I'm pretty sure he hasn't played Mirror Image. He's waiting on like the Bad News or something to play with the Westwind Herald. I'm not even sure if he has the Bad News in the deck anymore. However, he's so far ahead on board at this point. Alphil needs to draw a power and then a power into a Harsh Rule.
Yeah,
and he also needs to play something down in the interim.
Yeah, and I think he's taken out the Harsh Rule, so I'm not sure what his out is here.
Yeah, Kirby's going to take this game. I don't think he was particularly favored for this. This is a bit of good luck and a lot of good skill. Like, he played some really good. He played very well here as far as like pushing the tempo appropriately on the first game and just making sure that he had hands with the Stewards of the Past in them. Like, did a decent job there. So Alphil gets the Charchain Flail, but that just pumps up the Scrap Tank, and even if he has a Harsh Rule, he's too late to play it. That's 6, 7, 8. Bad luck on Alphil's part, but Kirby's going to take Game 3.
Yeah, congratulations to ExKirby making it to the 2-0 in Swiss. Death striking his own Grenadine drone for extra damage just at the end there.
That's one path to exact lethal, but goes for the overkill instead, and there you go.
Yep, and I don't think we have any more backup matches, so we'll be seeing you guys in round 3.
Yep, see you guys there.